All right, we return back to the Great War. Star Wars vs. Warhammer 40K. You are on the fastest route, episode 14. So, this is season 2 still, folks. And I know, yes, we've been a little bit delayed in doing some of the videos here and there. Some other videos came up, other work issues came up. But, folks, we're not done yet with this series. What's wrong with you? Think we're going to stop now? Now? I don't think so. Simple as that. Uno, dos, tres. So, without further ado, this is A Fan with Too Much Time. Star Wars vs. Warhammer 40K, episode 14. You are on the fastest route. So let's go ahead and... Ooh, I had to scratch my nose. Had to scratch a nose. But let's go ahead and enjoy this video in a 3, a 2, and an uno. Let's enjoy it. Let's get to it. Let's get ready to fight. Long live the Imperium.
He was on his 9th attempt, and things inside the besieged Chimera had gone from bad to much
Oh, we're back to these guys in the Chimera. Come on, get that baby started.
worse. No matter what sequence Farnes could think of, no matter what code the guardsmen contrived, nothing was working. And was it any wonder? Farnes didn't know so much as how many numbers the code required, the input panel accepting as many digits as he typed into it, leaving him without any reference to how long the sequence of numbers should even be. And while he sat there, guessing for their lives, his squad was running out of time. The vehicle rocked as the toy soldiers outside began hitting back in a big way, and if not for Gala's almost precognitive skill inside the heavy bolter turret, it was all but a given that the Chimera would have already been reduced to cinders and searing steel. Oh, please, Holy Emperor of Mankind, please guide my hand!
Come on!
He prayed as he closed his eyes, dialing random numbers into the pad, and then biting his lips such that it bled, jabbing the enter key. This time, the same rejection notice that had presented itself each instance before did not appear, and a new message took its place. Farnes felt lightheaded, hands tingling as he grasped the wheel before him and made sure his feet were against the correct pedals, waiting for the controls to unlock as his eyes focused on the new message.
By the laws of logic, this Chimera platform is declared locked and is hereby inaccessible until such a time as the proper rites of security reset may be reformed. Turn thyself in for punishment. Thy mind is unworthy of thine access.
The young guardsman felt all the blood drain out of his face, his grip slackening around the wheel of the vehicle. He reached out with a numb hand, pressing a cold finger against the steel keys of the input pad. There was no response, the message remaining unchanged. Using legs that felt utterly devoid of strength, he pressed against the pedals and found them locked. So that was it then. At first, he simply went limp, slumping into his seat and wishing he could will himself to die right there and then and spare the replique the shots they'd use. But then, a rage filled him, a defiance, a denial of the hand dealt to him. He gripped the wheel before him and grit his teeth, raising his heavy booted foot up from the pedals and aiming it at the display. "Thrown damned piece of treacherous!" He started to yell, spittle flying from his lips, when suddenly something happened that stopped not only him, but froze everyone in the vehicle, with the exception of Gala, who was far too enthralled in her bloody work to notice the change. The back door, the one that had been locked before, suddenly chimed and swung down and open. The sound and smell of the battle outside flooded the cabin of the APC, and in with it came a willowy, ethereal figure dressed in red robes. Regin screamed, falling away from the wall-mounted lasgun he had been manning, and, drawing a pistol, riddling the figure with lances of red light. 8 shots passed into and through the figure in red before Janice, who had been standing over Regin, had the good sense to kick his comrade in the face, knocking him out cold. The red-robed figure moved forward without pause or hesitance, even as it was struck by the lethal rays of light. The robe burned and smoldered, and then fell away completely, revealing that it was not a robe at all, but a portion of a Mechanicus banner. And the figure in question was barely that at all, no more than a floating head, or more accurately, a servo skull. The skull hovered between the stunned guardsmen, paying them no mind at all as it made its way into the driver's seat area. "Granger, get that thrown damn door shut! Janice, get back on those guns!" Kalak yelled, turning back to continue using his own weapon as his men heeded him a moment later. Meanwhile, the skull plopped itself down protectively over the input panel, and Farnes, who had frozen in place as this all happened, jumped with a start and lowered his leg back down to the pedals hastily. Sorry, I didn't mean it," he told the skull. It ignored him, settling itself over the panel and locking itself in place with several pincer-like claws. All the while, wires and mechadendrites slithered out from around the neck of the skull, finding various inputs around the panel and causing its obscured screen to go blank. Farnes jumped for a second time as the engines of the Chimera roared to life beneath him, and his squad gave a beleaguered cheer. He hesitated for only a moment before reaching to the lever next to him and jerking it into proper gear. The machine—
"Come on, it's prison break time. Come on, run. Come on, baby, drive. Drive, baby, drive."
cranking and thunking in response. "Omnissiah, forgive me," he said as the Auspex displays blossomed to life around him. "But I'm taking credit for that." He stomped on the accelerator and grit his teeth as the already smoking vehicle lurched forward in a sudden rush, almost kicking from the ground as it tore onto the base's main road.
That's
The
right,
base
boy.
in question was a mess of fighting and chaos, but the Imperium was definitely on the defense, and a receding one at that. Farnes felt cold sweat sting his eyes. Where was he even supposed to go?
Drive,
Turn
baby,
left
drive.
at the next intersection.
Said
Oh, turn left? Okay, baby.
the servo skull, speaking in an oddly pleasant, synthesized voice. Farnes marveled at the skull before reorienting on the road, hauling the wheel sharply as he came up on the intersection. "Left turn it is, then!" he yelled to his navigator. The Chimera swung, almost tilting up to one side as it made the maneuver, narrowly avoiding 3 chasing missiles from heavier troops who had noticed the APC's frantic escape attempt.
Come on.
3, but not the 4th. The Chimera was kicked hard enough to nearly topple over itself, skidding across the pavement like an ice hawk disc.
Come on.
For a moment, Farnes feared they would be sent flying over the edge of the platform, doomed to fall for nearly 10 minutes before hitting the lower levels of the hive. But his frantic efforts bore fruit as the Chimera's tracks finally touched down for long enough to give him traction.
Keep right at the next bend.
Said the servo skull. "That's not going to be easy!" Farnes
Come on.
shouted at it as he spun the wheel.
Come on.
Meanwhile, in the back
Come
of the
on.
Chimera's cabin, Kalak, Janice, and Granger were busy dealing with the new 6-foot gash the rocket had created in their vehicle. The burning APC was already starting to peel sheets of its own armor from the persistent cascade of blaster fire which assailed it. The inside of the cabin becoming swelteringly hot as the hull redistributed the plasmic heat of the enemy weapons. With this latest wound, the clones could now bypass the failing armor completely, and several
Stupid ass clones.
were attempting just that, lobbing grenades and hails of blaster fire into the breach. Gala's strafing lines of death kept them from getting too comfortable or accurate, but even so, it was all the other three could do to cluster near the mouth of the breach and fend off their attackers, tossing back grenades and returning fire. Back in the driver's seat, Farnes was crushing the accelerator pedal into the floor of the Chimera, knuckles white on the wheel as he came to gradually realize that, instead of driving out of the besieged base, he was being directed further in.
Make a left turn at the next intersection,
Left turn,
and
left
your
turn.
destination will be directly ahead.
Come on. Keep on driving. Keep on driving, baby.
Said the skeletal navigator. Burning throne, you better be sure about this! He yelled as he hauled on the wheel, skidding the Chimera to one side and almost flipping the APC altogether as he made the final bend. Before him, Farnes could see only a distant but rapidly approaching dead end in the form of a massive red wall, the wall of a Mechanicus shrine or temple of some sort. The building had 4 sides, a flat top, and it tapered almost pyramid-like near the top. Upon it was the half-bone, half-mechanical skull that was the symbol of the Church of the Machine God, and all over its pitted red hull were fires and flaws born from the battle raging around them.
Yes.
Increase speed. You are now on the fastest route to your destination.
What? Wait! You know that we're not trying to die, right? Farnes said, foot still.
The Mechanicus doesn't care about your feeble flesh mind and not dying. The machine spirit demands obedience.
Glued to the accelerator.
Acknowledged. Maintain course. You are now on the fastest route to your destination.
The young guardsman grit his teeth until he was sure they would crack. His hands were freezing, his guts were dancing in his body, his fear surging in him like a current of weakness which struggled to break him from the inside. His faith flailed against it, but it was proving less and less effective as the temple's walls grew closer and closer. He wanted to close his eyes, but knew doing so would be the same as diverting his path. Can I slow down now?
No, stupid.
Negative. Maintain course. You are on the fastest route to your destination.
The wall was swallowing his vision now, so large.
See, now when it comes down to the Imperium, I'm always going to be rooting for my boys. I don't care about the Jedi. I don't care about the Republic. Star Wars fans, I'm sorry what Disney's done to you. What Acolyte... But if it'll make you feel better, Kathleen Kennedy looks like she'll be stepping down, but her legacy is, her tragedy is, she destroyed a glorious IP. All right, Warhammer 40K. They're on the ropes. We could win this. We could win this fight. We could win.
In his view that he could see little else. Don't close your eyes, he ordered himself. Don't close your eyes! Don't close your eyes!
What?
Nerva released a silent howl of pain into the noosphere, finding herself isolated and alone. She wished she could jump out from her physical body and into the data currents of the noosphere itself to escape the certain death and failure which faced her now. But all she could do was mute the pain receptors in her left arm as the limb, both burnt and seizing from the blue energy bolt which had struck her, continued to convulse, tearing her muscles apart, both the mechanical and the organic.
Curses, those clones. Wow, how dare they do that to a tech priest?
She managed to stay on her feet, spinning to face the clones who had caught up to her in the corridor. 3 of them were charging down towards her, blasting all the while. 2 more blue shots sailed past before she was able to orient her Formaster's eradication ray gun down the hallway with her remaining arm.
Yes!
The shot was imprecise, but it barely needed precision. The satellite dish which served as the nozzle of the weapon erupting in a cascade of orange and red light. The light seemed like any other, save that it reddened the walls where it touched steel, and it shone straight through the clones, first blackening their armor before blowing them away silently like collapsing ash sculptures struck by a persistent breeze. Nerva sighed and sagged under its weight, groaning aloud at the sound of the weapon's warning chime. She had no idea if that was serious or merely the incessant mewling of the gun's grieving machine spirit. She hoped, for for her sake that it was the latter. Hefting the gun and finding that her now numb and useless left arm was finally settling down, its flailing now reduced to errant twitching, she could.
Is that a Titan? Please say yes. Please say yes. Show those clones the power of the Imperium.
Continued her journey into the central bay. It wasn't long before the hallway she was traversing led out into a wide, open area. At a glance, she could see that it had not been spared, flames and damage apparent in the walls and ceiling. But, to her relief, she saw that the ultra-lift platforms used to bring this super heavy vehicles up from the below-ground maintenance shrines were still visibly intact.
Good.
Less pleasingly, she could also see that the room and lifts had been secured by no less than 8 of the enemy replique soldiers. Nerva firmed her lips, hefting her gun to aim at the clones, even as the two seemed to notice her, signaling in her direction towards the others. This time,
Kill the clones. They're servants of the Republic and slaves of the Jedi. They're all liars.
she fired first, but instead of unleashing another devastating torrent of deadly light, the weapon released another chime. Nerva blinked and pulled the trigger again, eliciting another useless chime. The weapons of her enemies, however, were far less musical and far more lethal. She screamed her all-too-human panic into the silence of the noosphere as she tossed the useless weapon aside and dove behind a large block of stacked crates. She briefly considered reconnecting the nerves to her left arm, but dismissed the idea almost instantly. The last thing she needed right now was to be flooded with agony, even if it meant the loss of her arm. Nerva knew she needed her mind much more, and needed it as unclouded as possible to accomplish her goals. Those goals currently were mostly about survival, which was proving less and less likely with every passing moment. She had only a single deployable monoblade left, a 10-inch length which she could protrude from the centermost knuckle of her right hand. She looked at it then, deploying the black steel, almost laughing at how pathetically inadequate the weapon was for her current situation. And yet, she had not the means to create or produce anything better, and so, with lethal resignation, she began to crouch, preparing to advance. Just then, 3 of the clones appeared, running around her cover and surrounding her, guns
Cowardly clones.
out. She felt her whole body become as cold as steel. She didn't even try to rise as the clones began to pull the triggers on their blaster rifles. That was that then. As soon as this new resignation settled over her, it was shattered, along with the wall beside her, with a bone-shattering crash. A Chimera, burning and coming apart, burst through the metal wall in a spray of metal and bolt shells, firing even as it careened into the 3 clones who had cornered her.
Good. Worthless clones.
The vehicle swiveled and spun, terminating its erratic journey when it crashed into a partially disassembled Lumen Rust battle tank. The remaining clones reacted quickly, but most of them were not quick enough, the death-spitting turret at the top of the burning vehicle spinning to face them, blowing troopers apart with sustained fire and driving those that remained into the hallways for cover. Nerva felt almost weak, numbing more and more of her emotion and nerve receptors. Now was no time to gawk or even praise her luck.
By the way, that's not a Chimera. I think that's like a Blood Angels battle tank. I don't know what's. Maybe it's a Land Raider, but okay. But I know my Imperium sigils, and that's the Blood Angels right there. Sanguinius. It always should have been Sanguinius who was the War Master. Despite all his flaws, despite his rage, despite his melancholy, of all the Primarchs, he was the best of them all. He was the true angel.
Point that was driven home as several more clones began flying into the building, carried aloft by their jetpacks. These 2 were countered, however, as the back of the Chimera fell open and a squad of 4 Imperial soldiers charged out, one of them bearing an unconscious comrade over one broad shoulder. They opened fire into the breach, striking the clones there and forcing them back. As they did, a familiar skull, Bofin 337, came zipping out after them, heading straight towards her. In an instant, Nerva understood that her salvation had not come from sheer chaotic chance, and, despite herself, allowed a display of human affection as the skull approached her. Smiling in spite of her condition, she
If this human skull is the Warhammer 40k equivalent to R2D2, step aside, R2. We got a real hero.
wrapped her working arm around the servitor and pulled it close. "Bless you, Bofin! You're a seraph of the machine god himself!" She praised, speaking her thoughts to the skull over their new spheric connection. The device sent back several purrs and chirps of approval, recognizing its task as complete. She had only a moment more before a grizzled, sweating sergeant stomped up to where she was kneeling. He hefted a smoking las rifle, its barrel glowing and stinking of ozone. The man's eyes were bloodshot, and Bofin's auspic scans showed that he had a dangerously low amount of melatonin in his body, though his cortisol levels were abnormally high, even for the situation. The man looked down at her with an unkind grin. "Well, Tech Priest, I'm guessing you called for help."
That's right! That's right! That's how it should be. Listen up, servants and slaves of the Republic. You might serve your Chancellor Palpatine, and you might listen to your oh-so-fantastic Jedi, but the Imperium is a power that you cannot withstand. The Imperial Guard, the Space Marines, the Sisters of Battle, the Adeptus Mechanicus, the Inquisition, the Imperial Navy, and all factions associated with the glorious God Emperor of mankind will crush your Republic in two. Soon, very soon, a glorious Imperium victory will be before you. Surrender! Because never shall we listen to the lies of the Republic, of Palpatine, of the Jedi, or of your oh-so-fantastic clone army. The Imperium will win today, as we should, as we always should, and Chicago Reacts is a pro-Imperium of mankind channel. We're going to win, but hey, if you want to do something good, please support A Fan With Too Much Time. By the way, folks, just a final question. Please answer this question. That artwork of the Tech Priest hugging the servitor skull, is there artwork available for sale? I mean, I would like to purchase it for my collection, so type in the comments. A Fan Was Too Much Time. I'm calling you out. A Fan Was Too Much Time. This artwork, is it available for sale? Let me know. But I'm gonna be biased here. I'm gonna be for the Imperium, as I should.